Welcome back to another fantastic and lively show of OC and TJ. We're 1 week away from division previews, but today is July 1st, which means it's an awesome day in sports. NBA free agency has started. NHL free agency has started. The Celtics just extended 2 of their best players. And most importantly, it is Bobby Bonilla Day, probably the greatest event in all of sports. Do you know what I'm talking about, TJ, with Bobby Bonilla?
No.
Okay. All right. So I'll pretty much explain it. So I think about 25 years ago, Bobby Bonilla signed about a 3-year deal with the New York Mets.
Oh, I know what this is.
Yeah.
They're still paying him, right?
They're still paying him. So
yeah, I know what that is.
Up to the contract, they buy him out, but his representation had a different idea. You got to pay it over about a year-long span with about 8% interest on return.
Yeah.
So he's getting paid $1.2 million till 2035. And the reason why the Mets owners decided to agree with it, because they thought they were going to make more money investing in Bernie Madoff than they would if they actually bought out that contract. So
it's so funny how like the language always matters and like how they do stuff, right?
Exactly. And I think everybody knows what happened with Bernie Madoff, so we don't have to go down that path. So Bobby Bonilla has just gotten a paycheck for $1.2 million by not even doing a damn thing for them.
On that.
He's actually an awesome baseball player.
Yeah.
But
cool.
Let's get to the show. But before we do that, it's OC, it's TJ. How you doing, brother?
Good. I'm ready for the 4th of July, man. We're 3 days away, as you mentioned, 1st of July. So, and yeah, I feel like this is gonna be the most dead month of the offseason for NFL wise. But
yes,
you know, we got some cool like free agency stuff with NBA, NHL, I guess. But you know, football's right around the corner, so we're getting there.
Exactly. We are getting there, and with this show, next week is where it really gets fun. Because once the division previews wrap up, that's when we start doing picks and recaps. So that's why I always plan these ahead of time. So I always look at the opening date, and I'm like, okay, I got to be able to figure out like when I could start doing this. Because there are 8 divisions, and I just go 8 weeks back. And also, it actually makes the offseason a lot faster, just because you're not spending the next 2 months bored out of your own mind. But we'll get to that in the end, which division we're going to preview first. For now, let's probably do our last dead off-season period episode. I was going through YouTube, and I saw that the NFL throwback page, it posted every team's all-time Mount Rushmore, and I thought, all right, this will be pretty fun. The 49ers had an awesome one, and there were a few more that I thought were pretty interesting. But then I looked at the Patriots one, and I looked at the Giants one, and they obviously got 2 obvious players on there. But there were also some that I had no idea who they were. And that's not to say that they weren't great and that they're not deserving Hall of Famers, but it was the first time I've ever learned their names. So I apologize in advance, but I thought for this episode, we'd do our own version. Maybe not do all time for every single team, but of every position since the 2010s. Obviously, I'm smart enough to try to do it all time and to maybe even go since the 2000s, but because TJ and I were actually around the same age during the 2010s, I think that it's only fair enough that we look back and just revisit some of the best players at every single position. And then after that, maybe we could, declare who we think the best player at that position is for our own teams. So
yeah,
we're going to see how this goes. And don't worry, the show's going to get started. Let's start with quarterback, probably our favorite position, probably the one position that we do most of our shows about. Since the 2010s, so how do you even want to go about this? Do we just throw out one name at a time, or should we just give our options and then?
I think who's the first name that comes to your mind, and I'll either give a rebuttal or I'll try to name someone else.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's see. There's this very scrawny kid that got drafted in the 6th round. People thought he was too slow and that he wasn't going to play. And he just ended up being the greatest quarterback of all time. So I guess I have to go with Tom Brady because since 2000, he won, 4 championships, 3 with the Patriots. He won 2 MVPs. He was the first ever unanimous MVP in 2010 when he threw 36 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And, I mean, the list goes on and on. We don't really need to go on about it. Yeah. And it's the quarterback that I've been blessed with my whole childhood. So, Tom Brady.
Yeah. I mean, you probably could have even put him on the all. Like, if you just did 2000 to 2010, he probably would have still been on there. But if you're going just since 2010, I mean, he's still on there because you could divide his career into into thirds, and those are still all Hall of Fame careers. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Even in the late 40s, he was literally at the top of his game. So, all right.
So I think
go ahead.
We're definitely in agreement that he's one of the ones on our.
Yeah, he's George Washington.
Yeah,
he's the George Washington face.
Fair. I think my next one, or not. I'm not going really in order here, but I think one that has to be on there is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
I think since 2010, he has been basically. I mean, him and Brady have been the 2 most consistent quarterbacks. I mean, not even mentioning probably the best, but just consistent because, I mean, Aaron Rodgers won 5 MVPs. 4 MVPs.
Yeah, 4 MVPs.
Won 11, 14, 2020, and then the back-to-back 2020, 2021. So, unbelievable. I mean, it's hard, not easy to do that considering there was a lot of good quarterback play during his time, but
exactly.
Multiple All-Pros. I don't actually know how many All-Pros Aaron Rodgers has, but it has to be at least 2 or 3, I'd assume.
All-Pro selections are always very hard to judge by. I mean, Tom Brady didn't have a lot of All-Pros.
Which is weird to think about, but
he was a 4-time first-team All-Pro and 1-time second-team All-Pro.
So Rodgers has to be on there. I think he probably is at least a top 5 quarterback of all time, but he really, just what he's able to do is pretty insane. So
yeah,
to do that with the teams he's had is what I'm trying to say is crazy. Just because his teams weren't that good, at least defensively in some of those playoff matchups. So, so I think, are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I can't debate with that. I mean, when you win 4 MVPs, it's there. The third one, this is actually where it's going to get really tricky. Just thinking of who to put on there, but for me, I mean, you got to go with Patrick Mahomes. To be quite honest with you, the minute that he became a starter, he completely lit the league on fire. 50 touchdown passes in his first year at starter. Literally took the Chiefs from a playoff contender that always came up short to now they're the best dynasty in football right now. I mean, 3 Super Bowl wins, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, a conference championship appearance in every single year he started, and I mean. Even like in the last 2 years where he hasn't had Tyreek Hill, he won back-to-back championships. So the fourth one is going to be hard to figure out, but I don't think you can have a Mount Rushmore since 2010 without putting Patrick Mahomes. And he's not the GOAT. He's never going to be that, at least in my opinion, but he definitely deserves to be in that conversation. And he definitely shows every year that there are levels to greatness.
Yeah. No, I think that would be one of them too. I think the fourth one is definitely the hardest. It's tough because I think there's I'm trying to think how many come to mind. I think it depends how you want to look at it because there's someone who has played a lot and has accumulated a lot of yards, but then there's also I'm thinking between so you got Drew Brees, right? Who yes. I'm definitely considering, but Drew Brees, a lot of volume there. So he was, Drew Brees was great, but still, he was going to get a ton of those yards and stuff because he was always playing and passing. I think Lamar makes a good case, 2-time MVP, consistent. Changed the overall fate of that Ravens franchise. So I think he's definitely up there. I think you got to give it to. You could give it to Peyton too, but I think Drew Brees playing for most of the 2010s. I honestly think with Drew Brees, you have to give it to him.
Yeah.
Regardless, no, he never won an MVP. He was never really, he was the top dog, obviously, in a lot of the quarterback statistics. But I think never winning an MVP and not winning a Super Bowl in 2010 is definitely going to hurt his resume. But still, he was very consistent and hard to. I mean, eventually, I think Lamar. If we were talking in 3 more years, Lamar would probably be on there. But I'll go Drew Brees just because of the consistency and the longevity.
Yeah, I mean, if we were doing since the 2000s, I don't think it would be any debate because Peyton Manning's 5 MVPs came between 2000 and 2009. So I don't think there's any debate. But when you look at since 2010, I mean, bounced out of the first round. Next year, misses the whole year because of that neck injury. 2012, he wins comeback player of the year, but he loses the first playoff game. 2013, breaks all the records, wins MVP the 5th time, but gets blown out in the Super Bowl. 5th year in 2014, again, loses the first playoff game to Andrew Luck. And then the last year, he won the Super Bowl, but he was completely broken down at that point with the no-fly zone defense, pretty much putting him on their back. So I can't disagree with Drew Brees because, the postseason success might not be there, but if you look at his seasons, I mean, the numbers are there. He set the completion percentage record, the passing yards record, and then most of his playoff losses have just because of the defense completely collapsing. You had the Beastquake, the Catch 3, the Minneapolis Miracle, Kirk Cousins, and then, I mean, I'm not going to use the no call against the Rams as like an excuse to why he lost because it didn't really cost them the game, but you could make the argument that if that flag is thrown, then they have a better chance of putting it on ice. So, but I can't disagree with Drew Brees there. And there are also a lot of good names. I mean, you brought up Lamar, and there's also Roethlisberger and Stafford and Eli. But I think when you look at the volume, I agree with you. It's Drew Brees.
Yeah. No, I think that'll do it for our quarterback.
Exactly. And by the way, I think we all know who the best Patriot quarterback is ever. Who's the best Giants one of all time? Is it Eli?
It's a good question.
Because, I mean,
Super
with Phil Simms and Jeff Hostetler.
Eli's better than both of them.
Yeah.
By far. But, I'd probably go Eli or maybe probably Eli. At least in the modern NFL.
I mean, if you beat Tom Brady in 2 Super Bowls, I don't think you can be any lower than that. But I agree. And also, I could go on and on about some of the Patriots quarterbacks that I've watched, but I definitely want to get along with this. Let's talk about running backs, something that we both have an awesome conversation about, as you might be aware of. I'll start. I think, listen, all time, it would be too easy for me. You got Jim Brown, Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, and Walter Payton. Those would be my Mount Rushmore when we're talking about all time. But for the 2010s, I think for the first one, you got to put Adrian Peterson in there because he was probably the best running back that I ever watched when I was a kid. I wasn't old enough to watch those guys that I just mentioned early on in the show, but 2012, he's coming back from a torn ACL and an MCL, and he goes on to have a 2,000-yard rushing season. I mean, that's how freaking incredible what he was, and he won the MVP that season. So he was pretty much the only reason why they were even in the playoffs to begin with. And I know after Minnesota, he kind of bounced around. He wasn't really the same anymore, but I mean, I've always liked Adrian Peterson when he's on the field because he was electrifying. He got so many yards after contact. He was an insane athlete. So, AD all day.
All day. Yeah, that would be my first choice too. I think so. We're in agreement there. Number one. I think the other one I would pick is Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry has to be on there. King Henry. Yep. I know most of his production came obviously in the 2020s, but I mean, we had never seen a stretch of running back play like that, and he's still elite, and he's now with, one of the best dual threat quarterbacks of all time. So we'll see if that can almost. I mean, he had a great year last year, so it's not like he's kind of really showing signs of like falling off majorly. He's over the age of 30, so you think it's coming, but with Lamar, like who knows, man? So I feel like Derrick Henry's got to be on there too.
Yeah,
especially what he did for that Titans offense, man. Got to put him on there.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to get very interesting. I mean, because there were so many great running backs that I watched as a kid. I mean, you got Chris Johnson, Arian Foster.
Yeah.
I mean, as a Patriots fan, I always loved watching Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. I mean, we had freaking Brandon Jacobs on our show. That dude was an absolute tank of a running back. I mean, there was Le'Veon Bell, Eddie Lacy, feast mode. But for the third one, you got to put Marshawn Lynch in there. Beast mode. That man was the most unstoppable running back of that entire decade. I mean, we already talked about the Beastquake and how that pretty much launched his career. And I don't know if you knew this, but he wasn't even on the Seahawks to start that year because he got traded from the Buffalo Bills, which was just even more hilarious. But, I mean, he was, again, I mean, what else is there to say? You can't tackle him with just one guy. You literally need a convoy of defenders to bring him down. And if the Seahawks gave him the ball at the 1 yard line, they could have won back-to-back Super Bowls, and they wouldn't have been that dramatic circus that they were after that loss to the Patriots. So, Marshawn Lynch, I don't care where you put him, he's got to be on there.
That was mine too. Man, we are in agreement for a lot of these, man. So, yeah, Marshawn Lynch, my other one. Let's see if we agree on the fourth one, because my fourth one is not easy, but this would be my choice.
It's definitely not easy.
Shady McCoy. I think mine's Shady McCoy for number 4. Yeah. I mean, obviously, is he the best running back of all time? No. But what he was able to do in the Eagles, and you saw him on the Bills, like, man, he was
shady for a reason, because anytime he tried to make a move or a juke, it had you on the floor.
Yeah. So I think, obviously, hasn't played since, I don't even remember when his last season was, but
it was 22 with Tampa, and he actually won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so he's a 2-time Super Bowl champ
with the Chiefs.
Yeah. So. I mean, his run mainly came in those mid-2010s, but you can't have a list like this and not put Shady McCoy. So
yeah, my favorite game was when they were playing the Lions in the snow, and he just completely ran all over them.
Yeah.
That was so freaking impressive, and it wasn't even a good game until like the late third quarter, the fourth quarter, and he just went off on them. But for the best Patriots running back of all time, honestly, I mean, we haven't had too many star running backs because, I mean, it's always been a rotation. But I think the most successful has to be Corey Dillon because he had like 1,600 yards his first year, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. I already brought up Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. He probably had the best name out of all the Patriots that I've watched. I mean, he's definitely not the best Pats running back ever, but I loved watching him. LeGarrette Blount, that man was – I mean, he had 2 stints in New England, and he was freaking awesome both times. Shane Vereen, a former Giant, mind you, definitely one of the best receiving backs. Yeah, James White, Deion Lewis, Sonny Michel. But, yeah, out of all of them, I think Corey Dillon was, like, the best traditional running back that the Patriots had, at least that I've watched. I mean, we could go to Curtis Martin or Sam Bam Williams, but, yeah, I got to go with Dillon here.
Yeah, I think best Giants running back ever is probably Tiki. I think it has to be Tiki.
Ooh.
Look at the numbers, and, yeah, this run in the early 2000s, like, I don't think there was a better Giant running back to have a stretch like him, so probably go Tiki.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember like the first year or two after he retired, he just started throwing everybody under the bus.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he was still a beast though. Hard to.
He was still awesome. Yeah. And yeah, definitely. I don't think a lot of Giants fans like Tiki, the media personality, especially Saquon. So let's go to wide receiver. I think this is going to be really fun. I mean, too bad we can't throw out Randy Moss or T.O. because their primes were really in the 90s and the 2000s. And as a Patriots fan, I mean, we'll get into that later. But I think for the first one, Calvin Johnson, Megatron. It doesn't take one receiver to try to stop him. It literally takes 3 to make sure that you shut him down. And remember, if you remember in the 2013 game against the Cowboys, he was one of the only guys that had 300 receiving yards. He was an outstanding route runner. He had incredible strength. He had an amazing catch radius, exceptional verticality, and he retired way too early, but we obviously understand like the injuries were just taking a toll on him, and now has a deserved bust in the Hall of Fame and canon. So I don't think you could have a Mount Rushmore of the best receivers in this decade without Calvin Johnson. And I think where TJ's going to go with the second one because I agree with it.
Yeah, he could arguably be on the greatest of all time.
Seriously.
So, love that pick. That's an easy one. Number 2, I'd probably go with Antonio Brown. You can't have a 2010s team without Antonio Brown. Steelers Antonio Brown. Wasn't a greater route runner in the league. I mean, and great hands. Like, there really was not a weakness to his game. I mean, like a lot of these guys, but Antonio Brown had everything. He wasn't the biggest guy like Calvin, but like he had the burners. He didn't even need to have that big jump ball ability, which he still did, but it was because he was just one of the best separators, honestly, ever. So, or at least in the 2000s, since I've been watching football. So I think there's no way you can justify not putting Antonio Brown on here, in my opinion. So
I really wish he didn't ruin his career because, listen, if he would have actually stayed on the right path, he really would have been like a legit top 3 wideout of all time. Like, he was on that pace. So for the third one, I was not expecting you to say Antonio Brown. I was thinking of Larry Fitzgerald because all of the quarterbacks that he's had and the numbers that he's posted, I don't know why the hell he stayed in Arizona throughout his entire career. I really didn't, because he deserved to have a championship. He pretty much, got one stolen away by Santonio Holmes, and probably one of the greatest touchdown catches of all time. And that heroic playoff run would have been completely cemented as the best ever by a wide receiver, at least in my opinion. And, I mean, again, it was everything you wanted a number 1 option. The route running, the catch radius, the ability to make contested catches, and he was one of the biggest class acts in the history of the league. He never celebrated. He never showboated. Anytime he caught a touchdown, he just tossed it right back to the referee. And he was a model citizen in every way, shape, and form. So, yeah, Larry Fitzgerald, easy. And definitely one of my favorite players growing up, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, he honestly wasn't even – I obviously was considering him, but if I had to pick 4, he might have – he definitely was close, but I had 2 others that I thought would have eked out a little bit more. The last one might be debatable. So one of them I thought definitely needs to be on is Julio. So that would be my other one. So that would round out the 4. Was Julio the other one you were going to have?
The other one I was going to have?
Yeah.
I don't know if I had another one in mind, honestly. I mean, Julio is definitely out there. You had DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. I was probably going to go Devontae Adams with my 4th.
Devontae's.
The stretch he's had.
He was definitely a late bloomer.
I mean, still, but there wasn't really a stretch that we saw. Even Larry Fitzgerald never really had a stretch in the 2010s like Devontae has had the past 4 years. Larry Fitzgerald just played a really long time, and not taken away. Larry Fitzgerald was a amazing wide receiver, but he played a very long time. So, the numbers are obviously going to be.
Probably go with Julio, just because. Listen, it's a very tough conversation because there are so many great wide receivers.
Yeah,
I think with Julio Jones, he was the closest thing to a Larry Fitzgerald or a Calvin Johnson, just because the whole package was there. And anytime, it didn't matter which defender you were putting on him, there was no way you were going to guard him. He could get you on a jump ball. He could get you on an out route. He could get you over the middle of the field. He was just so elusive and versatile. And, I'm not saying that Devontae wasn't, but, Julio Jones was just, the Browns freaking traded down just so the Falcons could draft him. That was just a bigger whiff.
Yeah. No. Yeah, all right, so we're pretty much in agreement there. I think we differ on the Larry. It's hard to argue Larry Fitzgerald, but I probably would have gone Devontae or Yeah, probably would have gone Devontae there, but for the most part, we have those
You have a Mount Rushmore without Calvin Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald. Like those two were like
Calvin. Because Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald. A lot of his production came in the 2000s, and like.
But I mean, the reason why Larry Fitzgerald doesn't get talked about enough, though, is because the quarterbacks he had were so freaking garbage for most of his career. Like the only two good ones he had were Kurt Warner and Carson Palmer, and then. I mean, Kyler, if you want to count that, but he was already at the twilight of his career by then. So
yeah, I mean, definitely good arguments for both. I mean, it's hard to. I mean, I don't know.
It's hard to argue. I mean,
Devontae had good quarterback play, so that definitely might talk him. So I guess I understand the Larry Fitz pick.
Exactly. But for the best Patriots one, I mean, it's Randy Moss. And then if you want to go even further, I mean, you got Randy Moss and then Urban Fryer. You could put Wes Welker or Julian Edelman in the slot, but I mean, it's Randy. It's freaking Randy Moss.
Yeah.
Who's the best Giants one?
Giants. I'd probably go Plaxico.
Ooh,
yeah. I think the most. Yeah. Well, Toomer has the most Giants receiving yards, but man, Plaxico was just a beast. Plaxico definitely was the best physical receiver, like the best actual like receiver, like not necessarily the most successful or the most like accomplished. I think it's Plaxico, the best like actual like receiver of the football, if you know what I mean. Like
yeah, I got you.
He great route runner and had some really clutch plays. So as we know,
Plaxico Burress. All right, that's a very interesting one. For tight ends. All right. I think this is where we're really going to start to really rattle them off.
Yeah.
The first one, I mean, it's the best Patriots tight end ever. And to me, he's the greatest tight end of all time. It's Gronk. I mean, what else is there to say? He's an absolute machine, 6'7", probably one of the most unstoppable at his position in the league. He definitely wasn't the fastest, but it didn't matter which route he ran. He just had the length. He had the awesome wingspan, and he was literally Tom Brady's favorite target every single year. And this is when he had Randy Moss and Edelman and Welker. So, I mean, the all-time touchdown record by a tight end, I mean, one of the best contested catchers ever. Nobody even talks about his blocking. That's even...
Yeah, that was the most underrated part of his game, I feel like.
So, I mean, it's Gronk. And he's got the best celebration ever, which is the Gronk spike.
Gronk spike. Infamous.
Second one will be too hard.
Second one, I think you got to go Kelsey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty obvious one. I mean, he's had the same production as Gronk has. Doesn't mean he's a better tight end, but he's had the same exact production. So,
I know.
I don't think there's anything else to say there. I think the first.
I mean, he's probably like I had never seen a tight end like that fast and that athletic and that creative. I mean, he was so. I mean, he's still so great, and he's at the top of his game. Like, he can retire anytime he wants. That's how great he was. If he didn't miss that game against the Chiefs, he would have had against the Lions. He would have had another consecutive 1,000-yard season. So,
yeah.
I mean, and he's like 34, 35 years old, or not even 33, I think. So,
yeah, he retired pretty young, honestly, when you think about it.
It is really insane. The third one, I would say probably Jason Witten, because listen, I know he might not have been like the greatest tight end, and he was definitely not fast at all, but again, he was an intelligent tight end. He was, again, probably one of Tony Romo's favorite targets. I think that just anytime the ball was thrown his way, he was just going to catch it. Definitely didn't have the best vertical jump, and he was definitely not, like I said, he was definitely not athletic, but he knew how to get the ball in his hands. He knew how to see the field. He knew how to get the defenders behind him, and, I don't think you can ask anything different out of a tight end. And he was a great blocker as well. So, and most of his best seasons came in the late 2000s with Romo as his quarterback. So I think you got to put a Jason Witten there, but I'm sure there are plenty more that we probably missed.
Yeah. Probably wouldn't have gone with him, but I do respect that pick.
Who we do with?
My third one, so we obviously went Gronk and Kelsey. I probably would have gone with Jimmy Graham. I feel like
Jimmy Graham.
I
Okay.
got Jimmy Graham. Say like when he was even on the Seahawks, he wasn't like as good as he was with the Saints, but he was still
I would
productive.
have gone if we were just talking about like Saints Jimmy Graham, then yeah, I probably would have agreed with you. I feel like his peak was a little bit too short.
That is fair. Witten did play a lot of years, so honestly, I would probably, yeah. All right, I guess with Witten, the longevity, you got to consider that. So maybe you do go with Witten. The fourth one though, I don't know if it's like just like if this is too late of one, but I don't know.
It's tough with tight ends.
It's tough with tight ends because honestly, you want like Antonio Gates could be on here, but that's
what I was thinking of.
Yeah, that's also what I was thinking of too. But also like, I don't know. Yeah, because I was thinking either him or Kittle, but
ooh, I mean,
George Kittle just kind of not revolutionized, but he was a better blocker than Kelsey, and he's like runs exactly like him. So I think he's more talented than Gates was. So I would honestly go with Kittle, to be completely honest. I
definitely would have gone with Gates. I mean, I love
Gates, great, but
Kittle. I love George Kittle, but I mean, Antonio Gates is going to be in the freaking Hall of Fame
because he played like 20 years. Like that's the thing. Like Kittle is like, I mean, Kittle won't play that long because he's almost 30 or might be 30 now. But
I mean, as a tight end, he literally led the league in receiving yards 3 times. He led the league in tight end touchdowns 5 times. I think he's got the most touchdowns for a tight end in NFL history.
Valid. How many of those came in the 2000s though? It's a thing. Like I actually don't know.
I know, but you can't. I don't think you could leave Antonio Gates off a Mount Rushmore list. And that's not saying George Kittle can't make it, but it's just George Kittle is like light years away from where Antonio Gates was throughout most of his career.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
I think who's the best Giants tight end ever?
Probably Jeremy Shockey, I would think. If I can think, I can't really think of anyone else. Like, honestly, comes close. I can't either. Kevin Boss was a beast too.
Kevin Boss was fun to watch.
Jeremy Shockey's definitely. I mean, the numbers pretty much say that he would be too. I feel like the Giants ones are kind of easy.
Personality too.
What?
He's a great personality too.
Yeah, he was psycho on the field though. I'll say that he was like crazy.
I know. That was. I mean, I didn't watch too much of Jeremy Shockey, but anytime I've always gotten like my eyes on an NFL Films documentary, like, yeah, this man was crazy. But he was a hell of a tight end, that's for damn sure. Mm-hmm. Okay, Jeremy Shockey and Rob Gronkowski. There you go. All right, for offensive line, I don't think we're going to do every single position. I think we're just going to go with the whole line because you have some guys that can play multiple positions. And, it'd be too hard to just go through every single position and pick, like, the best 4 because, I mean, it's just going to be too long and it's going to be too boring. So I think for best offensive lineman since the 2010s, I'm going to go with Joe Thomas. I mean, completely should have had a way better career if he wasn't stuck in Cleveland. One of the biggest jokes in the NFL at that time. I mean, I don't know if there was ever a season where he gave up a sack. At least in my opinion. I'm sure there has been, but anytime
that would be crazy
he didn't let a single pass rusher beat him towards the quarterback. Like he was probably the best offensive lineman that I've ever watched, and he is right where he belongs in the NFL Hall of Fame. So he should deserve a Super Bowl ring. He should have been in the playoffs, if you ask me. But I don't think you can have a Mount Rushmore without Joe Thomas.
Yeah, I don't know. The first 4 I had on here, I should have had him. I don't know because there's so many good linemen to choose from, but definitely I see the argument there. The top of my list would probably be Zach Martin.
That one?
I think he's probably one of the best guards of all time. So it's like tough to not put him on there because he has been. I mean, he is like a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's shouldn't be a debate in my opinion.
Multiple Pro Bowls, multiple All-Pro selections.
Yeah. So Zach Martin would have been my first choice there. But honestly, I would probably include Joe Thomas too. So I think and I assume you are including Zach Martin too. So I think we have our two, Zach Martin and Joe Thomas.
Yep. You can say this with a lot of Cowboys guys. You can say that with Tyron Smith, who definitely has a chance to make the Hall of Fame. But I think for the third one, to celebrate the retirement, I think you have to put Jason Kelce on this list.
Yep.
Definitely a late bloomer in his career because, I mean, he said in his retirement speech that there was a year where it could have ended for him and he would have been in Philadelphia. But the harder he worked and the more time he spent, preparing himself and making himself better, that's when he became an All-Pro and a Pro Bowl selection. And he could literally still be playing now and he would still be the best center in the freaking league. I mean,
yeah.
One of the fastest snaps that I've ever seen, an outstanding run blocker, I mean, an incredible pass protector, and he's going to go into the Hall of Fame without question. And the same thing goes with his brother. So I think to celebrate Jason Kelce, we're going to put him on this list. And I know that's going to be tough for him considering he's the Giants fan.
No, I would have put him on there too. I think but I'm going to put I think the last one, former Washington player, Trent Williams, I think you have to put him on there.
Yeah.
I feel like those four are pretty obvious. There's definitely more like honestly, between him and Tyron Smith, it's hard. But
Marshall
Yanda, I considered too, but man, I mean, flip a coin for those three, honestly. But I feel like, or flip a coin, flip a 3-sided coin if there is one. But I'd go Trent Williams, honestly, just because he's still playing at a high level, so it's tough to say anyone else.
I wonder if we're missing anybody because I feel like we're gonna
Tyron, Yanda,
Marquise Pouncey,
Travis Frederick, probably
one. Jason Peters, Andrew White.
I'd still put Trent Williams over Jason Peters.
But yeah, I think Trent Williams is a great one. So we got Joe Thomas, Trent Williams, Jason Kelce, and who was the last one we said? Zach Martin. And that's a pretty good Mount Rushmore right there. And if we're talking about the greatest one in the history of the Patriots, it's John Hannah. Easy. Because that man was the best player on the Patriots when they were a flat-out joke in the 1970s. And he did end up going to a Super Bowl, but I think, listen, when it comes to the best offensive lineman in NFL history, I think John Hannah is right up there with the best of them. And I'm sure that there's some that I'm missing, like the famous or infamous in TJ's point of view, Nate Solder, but yeah, John Hannah.
I can't even think of the best Giants offensive lineman. I was gonna say off the top of my head, Chris Snee.
Ooh, that's Sean
a
O'Hara. Wait, was Sean O'Hara Giant?
O'Hara, yeah. Chris Snee. Well, they were on the same line, so I was gonna say either one of those two, but
Aaron Powers.
Yeah, right. Honestly, he's not even.
I just knew that because he was on the Giants, and I was not that good for you.
That was awful. But yeah, I was gonna go Sean O'Hara, Chris Snee. They were huge in those Super Bowl runs. I think it's going to be Andrew Thomas, but hold on.
Andrew Thomas could definitely be there. Maybe
he's already, I think, one of the best. I mean, because both. Oh, I think Andrew Thomas might already be the best Giants offensive tackle, and
probably
O'Hara and Snee were guards. I might be missing someone though, so don't quote me on that. But Aaron Thomas is gonna be there soon. So
no, I don't think there's any disagreement there because I think. I mean, listen, we've got. The Giants are not really known for the best offensive line in recent years.
Definitely not.
Mark Flowers and Evan Neal and Nate Solder and Justin Pugh. So
yeah,
I don't think I can debate with you when it comes to Giants offensive linemen. For defensive line, though, this is where it gets really hard because it's not figuring out which players, it's how are we going to decide this? Because edge rushers are not just defensive ends, they're also outside linebackers. So what do you have?
I think we start with this. We start with defensive tackles, and then we'll go from there. So let's start with defensive tackles for now.
All right, Aaron Donald, easy. Yeah. Most unstoppable one that I've ever watched, and going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl champion. Should have been the Super Bowl MVP in my opinion, but Cooper Kupp was definitely deserving of it. And I mean, all pro almost every single year. I think it was a Pro Bowler every single year. And for a guy that size, he was just he was like the quickest and most athletic in his position. And the dude is so freaking jacked from, just looking at the workout videos and seeing him in the training camp. Like, it's no wonder that that putting 2 on him doesn't work most of the time. So, Aaron Donald, easy.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I was just thinking about the next one. Can't even think about, because there's so many, so I'm just going to decide who I want a second. I'd probably go Ndamukong Suh first, or the next one, just because his run in the 2010s was nuts. So, yeah, how he was on the Lions. Honestly, he wasn't as good with the Dolphins, but he still had a few, like, his good years. He still had, I think, like 2 good years there. And then, went on some Super Bowl runs the last little fourth of his career. But, yeah, he was kind of I'm going to go on the field and kill you type mentality. Like, he was just, But Ndamukong Suh was just a physical specimen. So, can't really mention any defensive tackle in 2010s without him, I feel like. So,
yeah, I think that's a good one. I mean, definitely not the best career out of all of them, but I think, Ndamukong Suh definitely earned his respect. I think, I'm trying to think, was Justin Tuck a defensive tackle?
Justin Tuck was a defensive end.
He was a defensive end? Okay. I mean, we could celebrate another Eagle that retired, Fletcher Cox.
I was going to say him too.
Pro selection. He's a Super Bowl champion. Hall of Fame resume, I think it'll be a little too early to have that discussion, but I think, once we get more, I think he definitely can be. I mean, it's a 6-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time All-Pro, I think. Yeah. I mean, only one season with double-digit sacks, but when you're a defensive tackle, I don't think it really matters that much. So I think, Fletcher Cox, an elite run stopper, and just as great as a pass rusher. So I think we could put Fletcher Cox in there. For 2010s, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that would have been my other one too. My last one's kind of interesting. I'm interested to see if you think this one too. I'm going to go with Cameron Hayward.
That's a good one.
He was able to do a defensive tackle position. I mean, obviously, he got not moved out, but he could play on like all spots in the line, obviously, but he was like mainly a defensive tackle. Had really good sack production there, consistent pressures, and honestly is still, I mean, obviously not at his peak anymore, but he's still playing at a pretty high level. So I kind of like that one. And he's been like the heart and soul, well, maybe not the last few years because there's another player, but for the longevity of his career, he's been a very big staple and the heart and soul of that defense. So,
okay.
Right in the middle.
Yeah. Best Patriots defensive tackle was pretty much my favorite Patriots player as a kid. At least my favorite defensive player on that team, Vince Wilfork. Probably the most gigantic Patriots player that I think we've had in our franchise history, and he was just so freaking hard to stop. He was amazing in the run game. Literally, in his rookie year, you pretty much saw right away that this guy was going to be something special. And he was definitely famous for the butt fumble because he literally lifted an offensive lineman up off the ground, and that was why Mark Sanchez ran into him. And, I mean, it doesn't get any better than Vince Wilfork. And it was – I know you're not a huge fan of, like, the past Hard Knock series, but if you watch the one with the Texans and he had that cowboy that was how awesome of a human being he was. So it's Vince Wilfork, and Patriots fans, I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Well, do you remember the when he had the overalls on?
Yeah. Oh, who wouldn't remember that? Are you kidding me? That's amazing. And I also remember in 2011 he picked off Phillip Rivers and he almost ran it back to the house. And he was like over 320 pounds. Yeah. So
I think the best Giants defensive tackle, I mean, I was thinking between this earlier and like looking a little bit now. I think it'd probably be Leonard Marshall now I think about it.
Leonard Marshall.
Just because of like his production. I think he was like a multiple first team All-Pro. I mean, obviously he won a Super Bowl. Or no, he won 2. He won 2 Super Bowls.
He did. He was there both times.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty strong candidate.
Yeah, Jim Marshall was definitely a name I completely forgot about. So good call there. All right, for next, I think we should do
just edge rushers. They could be defensive ends or defensive tackles, or they could be defensive ends or outside linebackers, just edges. Like anyone that rushes the passer.
Defensive end and outside linebackers. Okay, so this is going to be really hard because there are just so many.
Yeah. I think I have the first one. I don't know if you're going to argue with this, probably not, but I think J.J. Watt has to be one of them on there. So
easy.
I think that's an easy one we could knock off. But honestly, I'd probably go with his brother too.
Probably. I mean, he's got the all-time sack record and fewer games.
Yeah. So I would honestly, if you agree with that, I would knock off both Watt brothers.
Yeah.
So I'll leave the next pick to you.
Yeah, I don't think you could debate with that. JJ is a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year and an absolute game record. And TJ Watt's got the freaking sack record. I don't think you can debate that. And he was the only person that made the Steelers pay guaranteed money after the rookie contract. Because I think he got $80 million and before that Defensive Player of the Year season. But anyways, oh gosh, this is so freaking hard. I mean, you got Von Miller, you got Khalil Mack, you got, Myles Garrett. It's so freaking hard. I think, for outside linebacker, I think you've got to put Von Miller on this list because, does he have a Defensive Player of the Year award? Has he ever won it?
Don't believe so, but
which is shocking.
I don't think he has. No.
Wow. If that is true, then that's freaking absurd because, he was the freaking game changer in that Super Bowl that they won against the Carolina Panthers. The 2.5 sacks, the strip sack of Cam Newton where he literally jumped back so he didn't have to dive onto the pile.
Yeah.
He was probably he pretty much made Mike Remmers into a meme throughout the rest of his career.
Yeah.
So,
jeez, man.
And he's going to be in the Hall of Fame without a doubt. So, I think you got to put Von Miller on this list, but there are just so many names that you could pull out of the hat and say, wow, how the heck did I forget about him?
Yeah. I think Von Miller's – I think the next one, though, to round it off is probably Khalil Mack, though. I think
probably.
I
want to go with Julius Peppers, too, but I feel like his top years were in the 2000s. He was great in Chicago, and he was just as well in Green Bay, but I think his best years were in the early 2000s with Carolina, at least in my opinion.
So I'll probably go with Khalil Mack. I feel like it's an easy one. So I feel like that rounds off our edge rushers, right?
I think so. And there are plenty other names that I'm sure we're forgetting. Let me just go down the list here. You have Dwight Freeney, but again, I think more early 2000s than anything, at least to me. James Harrison, again, same thing. Maybe Chris Long, that's a good one. Let me keep going down this list. Tamahali, Terrell Suggs. I think he was the Defensive Player of the Year. DeMarcus Ware from the Cowboys.
Yeah. So, I'd still probably keep
so many names. And then Clay Matthews and Cameron Wake. But I think that's a good list right there. The Watt brothers and Von Miller, Khalil Mack. I don't think you could debate with that one. And for the Patriots one, we've had a lot of great pass rushers. We had, Richard Seymour and Mike Vrabel. And, I'm trying to think. I already brought up Vince Wilfork. Matt Judon obviously could definitely be up there. And Chandler Jones, when he was in New England, he showed that he was going to be an elite pass rusher. And he flourished when he went to Arizona. But I think for the Patriots, I think it's Andre Tippett. A Hall of Famer. Definitely the best outside linebacker that I think we've ever had. And, he just got into the College Hall of Fame a few years ago, but he was also a co-defensive player of the year in 1985, a 5-time Pro Bowler. And yeah, he's probably the best all-around Patriots defensive player that we've had. So I think you got to put Tippett up there. For the Giants, I think it's really hard because you've got the best. I know who you're going to say first, but you have the outside linebacker, which is obvious. But the defensive end, I think,
Strahan. I feel like that's Strahan. Yeah. But either way, if we're just going edge rusher, I think you got to go Lawrence Taylor. So
yeah,
I feel like that's not really much explanation there. So
exactly. I love Michael Strahan. Definitely didn't like him in the Super Bowl, but I mean, anytime I watch TV and he's on, he's never gonna say anything completely outlandish or stupid. Like he's so freaking fun to watch. He's got an awesome personality, and he's an incredible human being too. I don't think anybody talks about that enough, but yeah, he's freaking awesome. And then Lawrence Taylor, yeah, there's a reason why the Cowboys' offensive line was like the greatest in the 90s because they built that just so they could stop him.
Yeah. So true.
Same thing with the Washington Hogs one in 1992 or 91 when they won the Super Bowl with Mark Schlereth and those guys and Mark Rippon at quarterback. So I can't debate with you there. Yeah, you beat me by a milestone on that one. All right, now let's go to middle linebacker because I think that will be definitely easier. And I know that the 2010s, this player only played the first three seasons of it, but I don't think you can have a Mount Rushmore without Ray Lewis. The heart and soul of the Baltimore Ravens, the most angry linebacker that I've ever watched, plays with his heart and soul and passion and leaves everything out on the floor. And I don't think he could have gotten a better ending to what was such an awesome career because, I mean, he got to ride off into the sunset as a Super Bowl champion. So, I mean, he was definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. It was too easy for him. So, Ray Lewis, and the best pregame dance ever, in my opinion.
I feel like this one's interesting because it's tough because he didn't play much in 2010, so that's why it's hard. So I guess you could make an argument for him in that regard, but because he was still good in the early 2010s.
He's still at the top of his game. He was just getting older. He just needed to focus on, his family and making sure that he focused on his family life.
Yeah. All right, so I get it from that perspective. I'd probably go for the second one. I feel like you have to have Luke Kuechly on there.
Definitely retired too early, but again, completely understandable.
Yeah. So we have Ray Lewis, Luke Kuechly.
Linebacker in the 2010s, just because he knew where to go every single time the ball was snapped. And didn't always work out, but most of the time he just knew where to go and he knew how to make plays.
This is the linebackers are tough because Luke Kuechly has to be on there because he played for a majority of 2010s. Ray Lewis, I honestly wasn't thinking about. Like Ray Lewis, I probably wouldn't have put on there, but I get where you're coming from in that.
Yeah,
I probably wouldn't have put. Well,
I would have put Urlacher because I think his best years were in the early 2000s.
Yeah, Urlacher probably wouldn't be on there, but I'm thinking like, okay, Bobby Wagner has to be on there, right?
Yeah, Bobby Wagner.
Okay.
That guy's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's still playing at a high level. I mean, he just led the league in freaking tackles last year, and he's in his 30s.
Yeah. And then I think for the last spot, you go with one of the Niners ones. You either go with
Patrick Willis
or Fred Warner.
Let's go with Patrick Willis. The man's in the Hall of Fame. He also retired in his prime way too early.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was one of the hardest hitters ever. And the only reason why, I don't know why he retired. I definitely don't know the full story behind it, but he was
I think it was injuries too.
No, and he made people pay for any time they tried to run the ball in his direction. So,
yeah.
I think, you said this was hard, but I think we just rounded it out.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't that hard.
For the best Patriots one, it's either Teddy Bruschi or Gerard Mayo.
Oh, it has to be Bruschi, right? I feel like it has to be Bruschi.
I'd have to go with Bruschi just because he was literally there throughout the beginning of the dynasty and throughout it. And, not only was he a smart player, but he was, again, one of the best captains that we've ever had. Incredibly vocal, and he was pretty much the same as any other defensive player throughout that time. It's just anytime the ball was in your direction, you just had to do your job, and you had to completely play at the highest level, and he did that throughout his entire career. So definitely should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. For the Giants, probably going Harry Carson.
Harry Carson.
He's a Hall of Famer too. And, he was
Carl Banks an edge rusher, or was he a middle linebacker?
Harry Carson. Well, he did rush the passer, but he was mainly on the inside. I mean, he played alongside Lawrence Taylor and Carl Banks. So
that's
he didn't really have that many opportunities to rush the passer. Or he did, but, he's mainly known for his, run stopping and just, huge hits, which Lawrence Taylor was known for too. But
Yeah.
He was really known for his run stopping too. So I'd probably go with Harry Carson just because really only Giants middle linebacker to think of that's a Hall of Famer, at least in the modern era. So
Yeah, Harry Carson's a great one.
yeah.
I mean, when you look at those Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick defenses, I think it's Lawrence Taylor, Jim Marshall, Carl Banks, Harry Carson. Am I missing anybody else?
No, can't really think of anyone in the secondary, to be honest. Those were built in the front seven, so it makes sense for a Bill Belichick defense, I feel like.
Exactly. All right, cornerbacks. This is where it's going to get fun. I think for the first one, I'm going to throw out Revis Island, Darrelle Revis. Easily one of the best cornerbacks in that span of football. Definitely had his prime with the Jets, where he literally shut down the best receiver on every single team, from Andre Johnson to Steve Smith to Chad Johnson to Randy Moss. I mean, the list goes on and on. Definitely should have a Defensive Player of the Year award, in my opinion, but he didn't win a Super Bowl with the Jets. He just happened to go up north and realize
division rival.
Good, and that's when we got him a Super Bowl ring. So if that ref didn't literally block him from stopping a wide open touchdown at Doug Baldwin, then it would not have been close. I'll just leave it at that.
Nope. Yep. I think he would have easily been on my list too.
Yep.
I think the next one you got to go with is Richard Sherman, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think he should definitely get the most credit for that defensive back room. Obviously, the others were great, but he was the best. He was the best player in those teams by far. Like Russ was great, Marshall was great. Those teams were loaded, but
he was their heart and soul.
So you got to go with Mr. Richard Sherman.
Exactly. I cannot disagree with you there. Yeah, Richard Sherman was definitely a pain in the butt anytime you watched him. But, I mean, he backed it up. Anytime he talked trash, he completely backed it up, just like he did with Michael Crabtree. So that's all I'm going to say.
Certainly do.
I'm trying to think who could be like some of the best corners. You could put out a Stephon Gilmore.
I think you have to go Stephon Gilmore.
I mean, he won a Defensive Player of the Year award for a reason. He led the league in interceptions and passes defended that year. He was pretty much the guy that made the game-stealing interception against the Rams in the Super Bowl. And, I mean, I don't think he's the best Patriots cornerback of all time, but he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. All-pro selections, Pro Bowls, a lot of Pro Bowl spots, and he completely walked away from the Bills just to have more success with the Patriots. So we completely love Stephon Gilmore no matter what.
Yeah, I think he has to be on there, to be completely honest. But I think for the last one,
it's really hard.
I feel like Chris Harris. I feel like Chris Harris is the one name that comes to mind.
In the squad, yeah.
Yeah, undrafted too, which is like nuts when you think about it. But yeah, man. I think I'd probably go with Chris Harris. Who'd be your pick?
Chris Harris is a good one because he was the best slot corner of that entire decade. He was incredibly fast, and I think it was perfect. He was a perfect fit for that Super Bowl champion defense just because you had Talib and Von Miller and Wolf. You had guys that could get up the front, and then you had a ball hawk and Aqib Talib, and then you had Chris Harris working in the slot. I mean, I'm trying to think who else was on that Denver secondary, but the point was, it was just an entirely great unit. But I would have gone with Talib. I could have definitely used Patrick Peterson. That's a good one.
That's a good one, too.
Maybe Joe Hayden. But I think, if you want to go out with all the secondaries, then yeah, put Chris Harris in the slot. I think that's a fair one for your Mount Rushmore. For the best Patriots corner, I think it's Ty Law. There are plenty of great Patriots greats that wore the number 24. Gilmore and Revis included, but Ty Law completely championed it. I think it should have been retired the minute he left, but you know what? I'm not going to complain about it whatsoever. The best corner during his era, literally the biggest pain in the butt for Peyton Manning just because he threw on the ball so many times. But I think Ty Law's in the Hall of Fame, and I think with that, you got to put him in there. Honorable mention, though, Mike Haynes. Patriots fans, if you know him, then stop playing because Mike Haynes was legit for sure.
I feel like for the Giants, you probably got to go Seahorn here, right?
Jason Sehorn.
I can't really think of anyone other there. I don't know if there's any other Giants corners in the Hall of Fame. I don't know.
I don't
think of it right now. Not in the modern NFL. I don't think so.
I mean, there was
Sehorn for now, but
I mean, there's Corey Webster, but I don't know if he was. How great was he throughout his entire career?
I mean, I don't think he was like Sehorn. Like, so I probably go Sehorn. DRC is definitely up there too, but I don't know. That's a tough one. Giants don't really have great history with corners, I feel like. So
yeah, Eli Apple is a good example, but I mean, it could be your recent draft pick, Deonte Banks. Who knows with that?
Very well could be. We'll see.
So we'll see what happens. For safeties, now this is going to get fun. The first one is easy for me. The greatest hair, but also one of the smartest safeties in the history of the NFL, Troy Polamalu.
Really?
Hard hitter. You're surprised?
I'm a little surprised because he retired at like.
Yeah, I got it. I mean, listen. Throughout most of his career, I mean, Troy Polamalu was the Defensive Player of the Year in 2010, and I think if he wasn't hurt with that hamstring in the Super Bowl, then maybe things go a certain different way against Aaron Rodgers, but I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals. But yeah, Troy Polamalu was definitely one of the hardest hitting safeties. He was an awesome disruptor, an elite ball hawk, but also just anytime you try to split it in the middle of the field, Troy Polamalu was going to make you pay. And again, if he's not in the Hall of Fame like in the next year or so, then it's a joke. So it's Troy Polamalu.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. I guess I kind of forgot. I thought he retired in like 2011, but he actually retired in 2014. So
yeah.
Now I think about it that way. Yeah, I would put him
jumped over the goal line to shut down a quarterback sneak.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can leave him off when you have.
Yeah, no, because he made. I mean, his 2010 to 2013 seasons were still amazing. So it's like,
yeah, I think he had 7 picks in 2010.
Yeah, so
if I remember correctly.
I'd do that. Even with 2010, even though he was the best his best seasons came in the 2000s. Like 2010, he was still at the top of his game. So, all right, we'll go Troy, and then I think at number 2. Shoot.
I have one, but I don't know.
Probably go Earl Thomas at one of them.
Thomas?
Yeah. I'd go with Earl Thomas, my other one. He was, obviously playing an elite secondary kind of helps, but I'll go with Earl Thomas.
I mean, he was elite. That's the thing.
He was an elite player, too, so, I mean, got to put him on there. So.
He was elite, and obviously didn't work out in Baltimore, but if you just look at his Legion of Boom years, yeah, he was at the top of his game. Him and Cam Chancellor, if you really...
I honestly was thinking maybe I put Cam Chancellor on there, too.
You want to put both of them on there, then I'm not going to fight it, but...
Yeah.
I want to put Ed Reed on here so bad, but I also know that his best years were in the 2000s, but he also won a Super Bowl in 2012. So I don't know if I want to, I don't know if you want to put on him throughout the 2010s list, but I freaking loved Ed Reed. I mean, he was just as dominant as Troy Polamalu, and he was definitely, in my opinion, I think he was a smarter player just because he knew how to fool quarterbacks, and he also played with intense physicality just as much as Ray Lewis. So, I mean, I don't want to leave Ed Reed off of here, but you could also...
if we're going to put Troy, we got to put Ed Reed, I feel like,
Yeah. I mean, you could put Eric Weddle there. You could put Eric Berry, maybe Harrison McCourty. But
yeah. It doesn't matter how you look at it. So I feel like we'd go Ed Reed, Troy.
It's too hard to leave those two off of Mount Rush.
Ed Reed, Troy, Earl Thomas,
and Cam.
Cam Chancellor. Yeah.
I think that's good.
I like that.
The Patriots have so many great safeties. I mean, there's Lawyer Malloy, and then you had Ronnie Harrison, you had Devin McCourty, you have Kyle Duggar right now. So I mean, it's really hard to pick. But I'll go with. Listen, if we're talking about free safety, then Devin McCourty, because he might not have been the hardest hitter, but he was incredibly instinctive. He had awesome speed. Bill Belichick literally made one of the smartest decisions by switching him from corner to safety, where he completely thrived. But if we're talking strong safety and physicality and aggressiveness and echo to the whistle, it's Ronnie Harrison. So I mean, take your pick. Both of them were very exceptional, and they definitely are going to be forever great. They're going to be greats throughout the rest of their careers, but I don't know. It depends on how you really look at the safety position. So,
Yeah, I think the Giants. It's kind of a weird one. I think Antrel Roll could probably, because he played as a corner and a safety throughout his career, but
Antrel Roll
as a safety, he was pretty damn good for the Giants, man. So I think he had a few All Pros. He had like one or two, and then I think he had Pro Bowls for, I think, because he was with us for like I think he was with us for 4 years, like 2009 and 2013. So, and I think he had made the Pro Bowl like 3 of those 4 years. I could be wrong though, but I know he made the Pro Bowl a few times and definitely had at least one All Pro. So,
right.
I'll go with Antrel Roll, and then he won a Super Bowl. So
exactly.
there you go.
All right, we got one more. We have one more. Special teams.
Me too. Oh goodness.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
This is literally the last one. So it could be your kicker, it could be your punter, it could be your kick returner, it could be your punt returner, it could literally be anybody.
Okay, so for
first one is too easy.
Kicker, Justin Tucker, right?
Tucker.
Okay. We got Justin Tucker.
Adam Vinatieri.
For 2010. Okay. Got what you mean. For Giants, I don't even know. Could not even tell you.
But Adam Vinatieri and the Mount Rushmore, and for the Patriots kicker. I'm putting him as my Patriots.
No, I know you're putting him as a Patriots kicker. I don't even know for the Giants.
History, so I'm not leaving Vinatieri off.
Would it be Lawrence? No, because Lawrence Tynes wasn't even that good. I mean, he's good, but he wasn't like. Honestly, I'd probably go. I'm not gonna say Graham. I'd probably go Graham Gano. Honestly.
Put Graham Gano. Why not?
Graham Gano on. He's the only kicker I can really think of that I'm like, oh my gosh, best Giants kicker. Plus, the Giants like go through kickers a lot, so.
Yeah. So we have Justin Tucker as one of the faces. When it comes to kick return, can you put Devin Hester on here?
I was gonna say Cordero Patterson.
Patterson, that's a great one.
I feel like you gotta, because he is the best.
I mean, he's got the most touchdowns, I think, out of anybody. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's a debate there.
And then we need a punter.
Shane Leckler.
No. And then I guess could you cheat and go Tyreek Hill here?
I mean, his rookie season was awesome as a returner, but I think after that he was just a straight up wide receiver. I kind of want to. I mean, you got Sebastian Janikowski, you got Steven Gostkowski.
That honestly makes me think though. Why did we not put Tyreek Hill for our 2010s receiver?
That's a good question, but because you had because you had a bunch of Hall of Famers on there, and Tyreek Hill. I mean, for the champion that he is, I think he still has a way to go.
No, but I'm surprised I put Devontae over him. Like,
that's all right.
Yeah, I probably would go Tyreek over him. So anyway, just thought of that for now. But yeah, I don't know who would go at punt returner. Maybe. Well, when did Devin Hester retire? If
2015, 2016, I don't even think he retired then. Honestly,
if that's the case, then I'll probably go Devin Hester. Yeah, you retired in 2016. I'll go Devin Hester. Your returners are Devin Hester and you know who I didn't even think of? Darren Sproles. Darren
Sproles is a great one.
All right, we'll go Darren Sproles, Cordell Patterson, Shane Leckler, Justin Tucker. I feel like that's gold. That's the special teams 2010s in a nutshell, I feel like.
Exactly. And if you want to be fun with the head coaches, then Belichick.
Oh, head coaches? Yeah, Belichick, Giants. I mean, that's Parcells. Maybe I'd probably go Parcells, though.
Yeah.
And then head coach Mount Rushmore. Kind of interesting. I feel like Andy Reid.
Are we doing all time? Oh, wait. 2010s? Yeah. Belichick, Andy Reid.
Harbaugh.
John Harbaugh, and then Mike Tomlin. That's a good one.
I'd probably go Sean Payton.
Sean Payton? I mean, Harbaugh and Tomlin hasn't had a losing season yet, so you got.
Yeah, but Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game in like almost a decade.
That's true, but also, if you don't have a losing season, I don't know if you can leave him off.
I don't think McVay's only has like one though. McVay has won a Super Bowl, yeah.
Ooh, I mean, yeah, it's
I'd probably go McVay, honestly.
Belichick and Andy Reid are guarantees.
Guarantees.
What should we do
Harbaugh.
next to?
I feel like it's got to be Harbaugh.
Really? You think John Harbaugh
won a Super Bowl too?
That's true. And he did have the number 1 seed twice.
Yeah. So. I feel like you got to go McVay. Because the other coaches either don't have jobs anymore or they kind of fizzled out. Like,
really, I really don't.
Doug Peterson. Was Gary Kubiak the coach of the Broncos when they won the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gone. And then I'm thinking about the other Super Bowl winners like
Pete Carroll.
I'd still go with McVay over Pete Carroll. Because Pete Carroll's great, but McVay's ability to just take guys like Cooper Kupp, Kobe Turner, guys like that and develop them into like superstars. I feel like that goes to coaching. So I'd go with McVay.
I don't feel good about leaving Mike Tomlin off this list. I mean,
he hasn't won a playoff game since like 2016.
I know, but he hasn't had a freaking losing season ever.
Neither has McVay. He's only had one.
Even in 2019 when Ben Roethlisberger got hurt and they were trotting out Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges, like they still had an 8-8 season. And I know that might
like 8-8, like
it's better than what other coaches would have done. I mean, John Harbaugh 2015. Flacco goes hurt. They're trotting out Jimmy Clausen, and they still go 5-11.
Tomlin also has some great defense. I feel like McVay, if you put McVay in the same, McVay wouldn't have McVay's only had like one losing season, and it was when like they were starting like John Walford. Like, I feel like that says a lot.
Walford. It was Baker. It was Baker.
Well, no, they started out with John Walford, and Baker played like the last 2 games, so it was like they were already.
Yeah, I got it now.
Yeah.
I never thought this would be the one where we debate. We just
because it's like head coaches have a lot. They're the top dog, so it's like you gotta pick the right one.
Exactly. And no, I'm not putting Kyle Shanahan on there. Don't choke at a Super Bowl, and then we'll maybe have a different discussion.
Fair.
And listen, if Pete Carroll did give the ball to Marshawn Lynch, he would definitely be
maybe we'd consider it. Yeah,
be up there.
Yeah.
That's damn sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are so many great head coaches. So I mean, it's too disrespectful to leave a lot of them out, and I'm definitely sure. But one thing's for sure, I don't think it's Jason Garrett, the clapper. That's a good one.
Dang, out of all the ones you could have called out, you called out Jason Garrett.
We got Chip Kelly. We got Hugh Jackson.
Oh, okay. There you go. Joe Judge.
There you go. Joe Judge. I mean, Rob Chudzinski.
Freddie Kitchens. Like we could go on and on, man. We can
literally go with all the Browns quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So.
I agree.
All right. So I think we pretty much wrap. Hold on, I gotta text my dad here. Sorry about that. So I think we pretty much wrapped up the show. I think we got a lot done in a shorter amount of time than I thought. I mean, it's still an hour and 13, but still, I mean, it's better than just dragging it on for 2 or 3 hours. So I think we did a really good job. And NFL Throwback, if you're watching, then yeah, use this video as a reference for future vids, because all-time stuff is great, but the demographics now are a lot younger. So it definitely something to think about. I think to wrap up the show, we should find out which division we're going to preview next week. That's probably my favorite time of the show, is when we start doing this stuff, because that just lets us know that, holy crap, we're actually almost there. And when we do recaps and previews or season picks, then that's where it's going to get really fun. So you see this website?
I do.
All right. So let's see. We got AFC East, AFC North, AFC South, AFC West, NFC East, NFC North, NFC South, NFC West.
Fast paper.
We've definitely done. Thank you. Been fast at typing since I was 4, so I'm not going to brag about it, but whatever. All right. Yeah. We definitely did this before last year. Here it comes.
I don't even know who I'd want here, but interested. No way. Oh, I thought I was going to end up in that.
Damn, we got one of the toughest divisions in football and that's what we're gonna do next week. I actually am. Damn, now I'm even more excited because we're gonna have fun with that one.
Indeed.
And I definitely have a bit of a steaming hot take that I'm gonna reveal, but find out next week. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for additional content, especially the ones that we're gonna put out starting next week. You don't want to miss it. Division previews, like I said, they're the best time of the offseason, at least for us. So make sure you stick around for that. And enjoy your 4th of July. Enjoy the whole month itself. And tomorrow, I think Hard Knocks starts streaming on HBO Max. So definitely can't wait to watch that. I think it's tomorrow, or is it on Wednesday?
Tomorrow night. Yeah.
So that is going to be really interesting to watch. Actually, while we're on that topic, what are you looking forward to the most from that series?
I want to see how much they talk about Daniel Jones. I want to see if there's any they show, any of the stuff I'm trying to move up for a quarterback. I kind of want to see if they and I'm also excited to see what led to them getting Brian Burns, like what that decision process was like. So, yeah,
those are good ones. I was going to say I'm looking forward to see how the whole talks with Saquon turned out, because obviously it didn't go the way the Giants wanted, because he literally went to get a huge deal with Philly. But I just wanted to see what those conversations were, and to see if there was any resentment, or if it was peaceful. But I think based on that sick trailer that was revealed on Twitter, I think we're going to be in for a really fun series. And I know TJ is just going to be sleepless thinking about it. So,
exactly.
All right. That just about does it. We'll see you next time previewing the NFC North. Peace, everyone. Packers, Lions, Bears.